Chapter 149. According to Yang Chen's appearance, it was not too difficult to draw a picture in the air with flames. The difficult thing was to form the array, and the array had to play a role, especially the fire to construct a water attribute array. Even if the people present added up, they couldn't figure out how to do it. Yang Chen knew very well that it was impossible to know the mystery of this, including Wuxia. Of course, he would not tell everyone that this was something that everyone would start to ponder after ascending and entering the spiritual world. The other party was a Yuanying stage master, and ordinary fire controlling means could not suppress these arrogant guys. Yang Chen certainly had to use something special. The flame array was the simplest of them, and it was what Yang Chen could do now, so he used it directly. It seemed that the effect was good. At least the eyes of the 5 people here had become a kind of monster. Yang Chen's purpose had been achieved. The sun's true fire was in hand, and in the process of refining the heaven-seizing pill, Yang Chen also had the capital to speak. If according to the normal procedure, even if these people accepted Yang Chen to join them, they would not have any special treatment for him. At most, they would look at Wu Xiong's face and treat him as a dispensable assistant. After this performance, no one dared to point fingers at him on the fire controlling. Yang Chen in the middle separated his hands, and the blue spirit gathering array suddenly dispersed and turned into a dark red flame that was as thin as a silk thread. One end was connected to Yang Chen's right hand, and the other end was scattered in the air. The spirit gathering array suddenly failed, and the gathered spiritual energy also exploded around Yang Chen, bursting out a blue light. Yang Chen's right hand shook, and the zigzag flame silk was like being shaken off, and it suddenly spread out from a tangle and became a very agile one. Then, Yang Chen's right hand turned slightly a few times, and the flame in his hand was like a whip, beginning to wrap around Yang Chen's hand. Finally, Yang Chen slowly put the flame that had been wrapped into a group into his body and looked up at the crowd. His ability to control fire was like a real object, and it attracted everyone's attention once again. However, compared to the stunning flame array from before, this move was much easier. Relying on the strength of a nascent soul cultivator, the few alchemists present should be able to barely do it, but if they wanted to reduce their cultivation to the level of Yang Chen, it was absolutely impossible. Senior Helian, I'm done. Senior, please. Smiling at He Lianyun, Yang Chen made an inviting gesture, then he moved away from the middle position and walked to Wu Xiong's side. This Helianyun was narrow-minded, but he had to guard against him. Standing by Wu Xiong's side was the safest method. Helianyun's face was gloomy. At this moment, it was impossible to tell what he was feeling. He stood where he was, as if he was deep in thought. A few people at the side looked at him with pity in their eyes. A high-level alchemist in the nascent soul stage was actually forced into a corner by a young man in the qi refining stage. They really didn't know what to say. With the performance of Yang Chen, his image in the minds of several people had also changed greatly. At least in the hearts of several people, they had subconsciously called him from a junior in the qi refining stage to a young man in the qi refining stage. Especially Zhu Peng and Deng Ya, looking at the current Helianyun, they even had a feeling of sympathy. In addition to pity, there was also lingering fear. If the two of them had jumped out to do something to Yang Chen, maybe Yang Chen's challenge would have brought them along. Then the one who would be embarrassed now would not only be Helianyun. But no one stood up to say anything. It was Helianyun himself who proposed to take Yang Chen's earth fire. When he said it at the time, he did not care about the face of Wu Xiong as the master. Naturally, at this time, Wu Xiong would not stand up to speak for him, especially when Wu Xiong was still an arbitrator. Everyone stared at Helianyun, but Helianyun just stood there, not saying anything and not moving, as if he was thinking about something. Everyone knew what he was thinking. In fact, from the beginning of Yang Chen's battle, everyone was thinking about whether they could do this and how to do it if they were replaced. Helianyun must be thinking about how to do it, so no one would disturb him. However, this process could not be too long. Otherwise, they could wait for decades or even centuries for Helianyun to think of a way. Yang Chen would not allow him to do this, and Wu Xiong, as an arbitrator, would not be biased. He could only blame Helianyun himself. Finally, after a moment, Helianyun also walked to the middle and stretched out his hands. Just like Yang Chen, a flame appeared in his palms and began to construct a pattern. However, compared to Yang Chen, his flame was really a bit unfamiliar. After all, it was his first time doing it. He had never thought about being able to control fire like this before. Fortunately, with his nascent soul stage cultivation base, he could barely control the flame under the control of his powerful spiritual awareness. The array diagram was different from Yang Chen's, but it was also a low-level water attribute array that he knew. Anyway, everyone was a knowledgeable person. As long as he could activate the array, even if he won the bet, he had to try it anyway. In any case, as a nascent soul stage master and a high-level alchemist, it was not Hellion Yun's style to admit defeat without even making a move. He was even lucky enough to think that as long as he could complete the array diagram, he could easily activate the array like Yang Chen. Unfortunately, things turned out contrary to his wishes. Without a real understanding of the 5 elements, without a real understanding of the array, and without a real control of the flame to the extreme, it was impossible to do what Yang Chen did. At this point, no matter how lucky he was, it was impossible for a miracle to happen here with Hellion Yun. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, Hellion Yun's array diagram was completed several times, but no matter how hard he tried, the array could never be activated. After trying several times, Hellion Yun's face finally showed a deathly gray color. He lost. A dignified nascent soul stage master, a third-grade alchemist, was actually defeated by a junior in the Qi refining stage. How could the proud Hellion Yun endure this? When did he, Hellion Yun, suffer such an insult in front of others? Although he was angry in his heart, in front of Wu Xiong, Hellion Yun did not dare to lose his temper at all. He did not even dare to mention breaking the contract. At this time, Hellion Yun began to regret why he jumped out and had such an attitude towards Yang Chen. Now it was too late to say anything, he could only take one step at a time. Perhaps, refining the heaven-seizing pill with all his strength was the best opportunity. As long as he could make Wu Xiong happy, he would change the bet to something else. As long as he did not deprive himself of the sun's true fire, Hellion Yun could agree to any conditions now. Chapter 150. I've lost. In front of Wu Xiong, Hellion Yun didn't think about getting lucky. He could only say this sentence of admitting defeat dejectedly. Taking the initiative to admit defeat at this time was much better than being judged impolitely. At least it could leave a good impression on Wu Xiong. Violent resistance? This idea flashed in Hellion Yun's mind before it was given up. What a joke! Wu Xiong could kill Hellion Yun in the nascent soul stage dozens of times with one hand. In the end, Hellion Yun was still a person who cherished his life and was afraid of death. Even if the sun true fire was precious and the cultivation base was important, compared with his own life, Hellion Yun was still willing to give it up. As long as his alchemy skills were still there would always be a chance to find or exchange for a fire seed. As for Yang Chen, after Wu Xiong ascended, who could still protect him? At that time, he could think of how to deal with Yang Chen, maybe he could even get back his sun true fire. As long as he was alive, everything was possible. The sun true fire is mine. A smile appeared on Yang Chen's face. I'll leave it with you first. Hellion Yun's attitude made Yang Chen see through Hellion Yun's character. Since he was timid and cherished his life, he would never be willing to die with a disciple in the Qi refining stage for the sun true fire. As long as Hellion Yun dared to attack him during the refining of the heaven-seizing pill, he couldn't escape from Wu Xiong. With this guarantee, Yang Chen could participate in the refining of the heaven-seizing pill with confidence. As for the future, that was a matter for the future. Hellion Yun without the sun true fire and Yang Chen after absorbing the sun true fire, even if there was a gap in the realm, Hellion Yun would not dare to make a move in the territory of Chunyang Palace. Anyway, after returning from the immortal falling abyss this time, Yang Chen would definitely return to Chunyang Palace to be apprenticed. At that time, Chunyang Palace would definitely protect this genius alchemist to death. This small episode made everyone no longer dare to despise Yang Chen. Now that the people invited by Wu Xiong were in place, the next step was the lengthy preparation process. All the materials had been prepared by Wu Xiong through various means. Everything was ready except for the east wind. Unfortunately, The pill recipe in Wu Xiong's hands was obtained from the descendants of Senior Xianxia, who had refined the heaven-seizing pill in the past. The pill recipe was not complete. It only listed the required materials, and the refining technique was only recorded in the early stages. The final stage was not mentioned at all. Everything needed to be discussed and tested. The reason why 3 high-level alchemists were gathered was because of this. There were so many materials that 95% of the cultivators in the mortal world would be shocked. It seemed that except for Wu Xiong, a master of the Deshang stage, it was impossible for other people to collect so many materials. Just the early stage of refining would take at least a few years. Even if it was divided to 3 high-level alchemists to do it, it would still take 3 to 4 years. The heaven-seizing pill was completely different from those low-level medicinal pills. In Yang Chen's view, this heaven-seizing pill was simply a combination of dozens of top-level medicinal pills, and it also required a powerful monster's primordial spirit as a pill spirit to be successfully refined. The top-level medicinal pills that needed to be refined first were enough to test all the alchemists present, not to mention the final stage of the pill spirit fusion process. In the eyes of ordinary people, it was simply impossible. Dozens of medicinal pills, all kinds of 5 elements, mutually reinforcing and restraining each other, wanting to fuse them together, even in the eyes of these Yuanying stage alchemists, was a very difficult thing. This was also why Yang Chen's move would give Yang Chen the right to speak. The categorized materials alone took up a storage room the size of 2 squares, and this did not include the corpses of the gigantic demonic beasts. With so many materials, it would take at least half a year to refine and purify them. Now, all the work of refining and purifying the medicinal materials were all placed on Yang Chen. His earth core fire was the most suitable flame for refining medicinal materials, and the previous performance of Yang Chen also made everyone recognize his excellence in controlling the flame. Refining and purifying medicinal materials was his. As long as the most basic materials could be upgraded by 1 level, then the possibility of the final refining success could be greatly improved. No one would deny this. Several people's attitude towards Yang Chen was a lot more polite. Everyone lived in the manner of Elder Wu. When several Yuanying stage alchemists and Elder Wu discussed how to carry out the final steps, Yang Chen began the refining of all the medicinal materials. This time, Yang Chen was no longer barehanded, but used the profound spirit furnace. As soon as the profound spirit furnace was taken out, several people were a little surprised. Of course, the surprise was not the grade of the profound spirit furnace, but the fact that the profound spirit furnace was actually a magic weapon. Although the profound spirit furnace would be famous in the heavenly court in the future, now it was just a low-level pill furnace, and it was far from being coveted by several Yuanying stage masters. Yang Chen was only at the peak of the qi refining stage, but he could refine and use magic weapons, and there was no sign of difficulty. This was what surprised these masters. However, the surprise was the surprise. No one said anything about it. In this world, the cultivation geniuses were like fish crossing the river. There were countless. There was no more Yang Chen. There was no less Yang Chen. It was common. The refined medicinal materials would be carefully placed in the most suitable container, and then carefully placed on the other side of the square. After the start of the refining, Zhu Peng, Deng Ya, and Helian Yun would often come here to check the refining of the medicinal materials. However, every time they nodded silently. The medicinal materials that Yang Chen refined and purified were almost perfect, and the impurities in the medicinal materials were removed, leaving only the essence. The 3 Yuanying stage alchemists also had to admire it. Even if they did it, they might not be able to do better than Yang Chen, and it was even possible that they could not compare to Yang Chen. When Helian Yun looked at Yang Chen, he did not seem to have any strange eyes, and he was also doing his best in the discussion, and he could not see any dissatisfaction in his performance. However, every time they looked at the medicinal herbs that had been refined, there would always be a trace of hostility in their eyes. It was just that no one noticed it. In half a year, Yang Chen had refined all the medicinal materials that could be refined, and the remaining ones that needed to be used immediately after refining on the spot, such as the best quality emerald jade Ganoderma, were all kept, waiting for the final use. And the three Yuanying stage alchemists, after discussing no less than thousands of plans, finally summed up almost 10 methods, which one to use, they needed to adapt to the situation. Everything was ready, just waiting to start refining. Chapter 151. When the refining began, there was basically nothing to do with Yang Chen for the time being. His strength was really too low. Even the scattered pills of the heaven-seizing pill were not something that he could refine with his current realm. He could only watch others do it. Zhu Peng, Deng Ya, and He Lianyun could be invited by Elder Wu Xiong, and they were not people with undeserved reputations. In addition to He Lianyun's small discourtesy in the gambling match with Yang Chen, these people had their own merits in alchemy, and any one of them could be considered a tyrant. Although Yang Chen could be said to be at the peak of fire control, he did not study too much in alchemy in his previous life. He was just the most ordinary alchemist in the heavenly court. Firstly, there was no good magic weapon pill furnace in his hand. Secondly, there was no good opportunity to hide. He had only seen many strong alchemists in the heavenly court and exchanged a lot of experience, but he had never practiced it. Now he had the opportunity to observe the alchemy process of these high-level alchemists at such a close distance. With Yang Chen's experience in his previous life and his understanding of the Old Lord Pill scripture, Yang Chen knew what was going on at a glance. These alchemists were worthy of being the most powerful alchemists in the mortal world at present. Each of them had their own unique ideas, and the techniques they used were also different, which made Yang Chen's eyes open. Although there were many changes in the techniques, they were all the same. Yang Chen now finally discovered the power of the Old Lord Pill scripture. The techniques of the three people and the methods of processing medicinal materials could almost be found in the Old Lord Pill scripture. Moreover, the techniques of the Old Lord Pill scripture were more reasonable and effective than the three of them. Despite this, Yang Chen was not surprised at all. If the Old Lord Pill scripture was not strong enough, what kind of alchemy technique could be called strong? It was almost the absolute boss of the alchemists in the world. Unfortunately, the Old Lord Pill scripture only had the methods of processing various medicinal materials, alchemy techniques, pulling the pills and other methods, but there was no pill recipe. Otherwise, as long as one had the recipe for the 9 Revolutions golden pill and gathered all the ingredients, a single pill would be enough for one to ascend to the heavens. Refining pills was not something that could be done in a short period of time. Yang Chen also chatted a lot with Fan Shan, who was temporarily free. Fan Shan's main purpose this time was to help everyone refine the demon beast's origin spirit. To put it bluntly, a demon beast's primordial spirit was a demon beast's primordial spirit equivalent to a cultivator's nascent soul stage. The more powerful the demon beast used, the higher the success rate of refining the heaven-seizing pill. The monster was captured by Wu Xiong himself. The monster above the Yuanying realm was almost a step away from ascending into the spiritual world. If one wanted to capture it without hurting the original spirit, except for Wu Xiong who was about to ascend in the Deshang stage, no one else could help. However, after capturing it, Fan Shan would have to do the work. It seemed that only the people from the school of imperial beasts were the most professional at forcing a demonic beast to separate its origin spirit. Of course, Fan Shan and Yang Chen would not talk about beast taming. Yang Chen, a small disciple in the Qi refining stage, was not qualified to discuss this with him. What he was interested in was Yang Chen's fire control skills. Almost everyone had the 5 elements, and Yang Chen was able to reach this level in the Qi refining stage. In the eyes of anyone, it was certain that Yang Chen must have a unique secret cultivation method. Unfortunately, no matter how Fan Shan probed and how he promised benefits, Yang Chen did not say his own cultivation method. This was within Fan Shan's expectations. If someone else had asked him about his animal taming technique, he would not have told them about it. With Wu Xiong here, no one could do anything to Yang Chen. Everyone just maintained such a friendly relationship. Later, Fan Shan completely did not have the idea of getting the secret cultivation method from Yang Chen's mouth, and wholeheartedly made friends with Yang Chen. Fan Shan was able to reach the Yuanying stage. Naturally, he was not a fool. A disciple in the Qi refining stage could have such a performance. In the next few decades or even hundreds or thousands of years, there would be a golden chair for Yang Chen among the alchemists. At this time, if he did not make friends with a promising alchemist master, he would really be a fool. Fan Shan deliberately made friends, and Yang Chen also intended to find a strong support for himself in the cultivation world. The two almost hit it off and talked in detail. In addition to the matters of cultivation, Fan Shan almost taught everything he knew. From eating, drinking and playing to magic weapon materials, Fan Shan almost told Yang Chen everything he knew. Wu Xiong has been paying attention to the progress of the refining. The early refining was not too complicated. With the level of the third-grade alchemist master, coupled with the records of the early stages of the pill recipe, the scattered separated pills were all completed in less than a year. Except for a few pills with higher requirements, after the first refining failure, the others were completed in one go. Even though these pills were more difficult to refine, they were all completed after a few rounds of refining. Of course, there was more than one set of materials prepared. Each kind had at least several times the required reserves, just in case of emergencies. During the refining process, everyone also noticed Yang Chen's means of refining and purifying medicinal materials. The medicinal materials that were refined and purified by Yang Chen were extremely comfortable to use. The medicinal properties were handled just right, and they had reached the limit of what they could handle. During the refining, they didn't even need to care about whether the efficacy of the medicine would be effective as before. They just needed to focus on the control of the refining process. It was the most comfortable few months of their refining career. What made the few alchemists feel the most comfortable was that every time they wanted to add the medicinal materials, they would find that the medicinal materials that they wanted to add were in the most convenient place for them. Yang Chen had already processed the medicinal materials according to the needs and according to the records of the pill recipe. He had made all the preparations. In the eyes of the three of them, even if he was a servant, he was the servant who made them the most worry-free. Not once was it because of Yang Chen's medicinal materials that led to failure, and not once was it because of Yang Chen's improper preparation. The only few failures were not because of the fire or because of the wrong control method, or the pill itself was very difficult and the success rate was relatively low. It had nothing to do with Yang Chen. While helping a few people to prepare these medicinal materials, Yang Chen also observed their refining methods. Perhaps the three alchemists thought that if they did not explain, others would not be able to learn anything from their refining process, so they were confident and bold and never guarded against it, which let Yang Chen pick up a big bargain. Everyone's unique method and refining process were studied thoroughly by Yang Chen. Learning from others secretly had never been so open and aboveboard like this time. In front of these three alchemists, he had learned their refining methods cleanly and even made better improvements. Unfortunately, no one would know. Chapter 152. From refining and purifying the medicinal materials to the completion of the basic refining of the medicinal pills, it has been more than a year. In this more than a year, Yang Chen, in addition to verifying the techniques of the elderly Lord Pill scripture under the hands of several senior alchemy masters, the rest of the time, excluding the exchange with Fan Shan, was only cultivation. When absorbing the earth core fire, Yang Chen's fire attribute spirit power directly rushed from the Qi refining 8th layer to the peak of the Qi refining 10th layer. Ordinary cultivators can't wait for their cultivation to improve as quickly as possible. However, the consecutive breakthrough of 2 levels for Yang Chen, although his cultivation base improved, it was not the kind of improvement he hoped for. The ideal process of improving his cultivation base in Yang Chen's mind was still a step-by-step breakthrough of a small level, accumulating small-level breakthroughs until the realm was improved. The experience of his previous life's cultivation made him know that this was the most secure and the least troublesome way to improve. The rapid improvement of cultivation base seemed to be a rapid improvement, but without a sufficient foundation, it was often not enough to lay the foundation in the later stage. In some key areas, there was no momentum at all, and one would be stuck in the bottleneck period for decades or even hundreds of years. Compared with spending a few years to lay a good foundation in a low realm, the rapid improvement was simply not worth the loss. However, the current situation did not allow him to do this. Yang Chen also fully knew that the improvement of the fire attribute cultivation base brought by the absorption of the fire seed was not something that he could control, so he had to find ways to remedy it. After the rapid improvement, he would immediately stabilize the realm and then fully consolidate it at this level. This was the best way to reduce the mistakes of future cultivation. Even if it took a little more time, he would try to remedy it. Everything Yang Chen did during this time was to consolidate the existing realm. Refining the medicinal materials of the heaven-seizing pill, this was a rare opportunity for Yang Chen. The medicinal pills that could make a master of the Dashang stage ascend, the spiritual power contained in them was something that even Zhu Peng, Deng Ya, and He Lianyun, these masters of the Yuaning stage, could not guess, and Yang Chen would naturally absorb some of them in the process of refining. Yang Chen's refining and purifying medicinal materials was not completely undisciplined and random, but according to a certain order, starting from the fire attribute, according to the characteristics of the 5 elements, refining them one by one. It contained all kinds of yin and yang 5 elements of medicinal materials, and it was almost the top medicinal materials in this world, so that Yang Chen completely washed his meridians and body with the medicinal qi of these medicinal materials. Even if it was just the overflow of spiritual power in the refining process of the medicinal qi, it was enough for Yang Chen, a person in the qi refining stage, to fully eliminate some of the physical discomfort and hidden dangers brought about by the continuous improvement of his strength, so that his realm was more stable, and even his spiritual power was more pure. A lot of medicinal qi nourished not only Yang Chen's realm, but also the profound spirit furnace. The more top-level medicinal materials, the more fully nourished the alchemy furnace. Under the influence of these top medicinal materials, the profound spirit furnace also seemed to slowly begin to grow, and the structure of the furnace body had some subtle changes. Although it has not yet reached the point of overall great improvement, the medicinal pills refined with the profound spirit furnace were definitely 20% better than the quality of the medicinal pills refined by Yang Chen before. All the basic medicinal pills have been completed, and the rest is to use various methods to start to integrate these medicinal pills, and Yang Chen's work was to purify the best quality emerald jade Ganoderma with lotus. In more than a year, Yang Chen's fire attribute qi refining peak realm has been completely consolidated. Not only that, but the other attributes of the qi refining 8th layer realm, it was also stable and it was time to improve. Refining and purifying the best quality emerald jade Ganoderma was Yang Chen's opportunity. As the main ingredient of the heaven-seizing pill, the spiritual power contained in the best quality emerald jade Ganoderma could be described as massive. It was a precious medicinal material that could directly make a Dashang stage master ascend. Even if it was only a little bit of medicinal qi when refining, it was enough for Yang Chen to break through the bottleneck of the qi refining peak and enter the realm of the foundation stage. The 3 alchemists were all racking their brains to think about the final integration of the heaven-seizing pill, and no one would pay attention to Yang Chen's side. Although He Lianyun held a grudge in his heart, in front of Wuxia, he did not dare to show even a trace of dissatisfaction. Yang Chen was also able to carry out his own plan without interference and under the protection of 4 Yuaning stage masters and a Dashang stage master. Although the best quality emerald jade Ganoderma only grew in the depths of the jade mine, it belonged to the top heavenly materials and earthly treasures of all the 5 elements, and it was also the key to fusing all the basic medicinal pills. And refining and purifying the best quality emerald jade Ganoderma was a relatively important part of all the steps. If it wasn't for Yang Chen's extremely strong ability to control fire before, this task would not be his turn at all. When Wu Xiong showed Yang Chen, he was holding the best quality emerald jade Ganoderma in his hand. It seemed easy, but Wu Xiong used at least 30% of his power to seal the emerald jade Ganoderma. This kind of heavenly materials and earthly treasures already had spirituality. To put it bluntly, if one was not careful, it could directly escape from the hands of people. Even for Wu Xiong, the emerald jade Ganoderma had always been with him, and not in the previous place where the medicinal materials were stored. The jade box that was heavily restricted was slowly opened in Wu Xiong's hands, revealing the emerald green emerald jade Ganoderma. It seemed that it had already felt its fate. The emerald jade Ganoderma, which was supposed to be a dead object, was in turmoil like a frightened animal. However, under the powerful restriction of Wuxia, it could only wriggle and deform in a small range and could not escape at all. Around Xianxia, Wuxia directly arranged at least 3 restrictions, so that even if he couldn't control the emerald jade Ganoderma for a while, it would not let the emerald jade Ganoderma escape. It must be known that as long as it touched the ground, this emerald jade Ganoderma could escape and disappear like a master. Are you sure? Before starting, Wuxia still asked Xianxia a little worriedly. Everyone had a solemn look. Xianxia certainly would not be arrogant. He nodded slightly and did not answer. However, the flame in the profound spirit furnace had begun to tangle wildly and soon formed a complex array diagram. In the center of the array diagram, a little flame the size of a bean began to emit a little dark red light. Seeing this array diagram, Wuxia also showed a look of approval. This was simply a copy of the restriction outside the jade box that he kept the emerald jade Ganoderma. With this foundation, the success rate would not be too low. Several senior alchemists who were watching saw that Xianxia could even control it in the alchemy furnace like this. Their faces were solemn and they stared at the profound spirit furnace in Xianxia's hands for fear of missing anything. Chapter 153. It was not a rare thing to engrave the array in the alchemy furnace. Even Xianxia, when carrying out the sacrificial refining of the Earth Fiend's sacrificial formation secret art, would take the initiative to engrave the Earth Fiend array in the profound spirit furnace to enhance the power of the profound spirit furnace. However, it was the first time that a restriction array was formed inside the furnace body with a flame. Whether it was the 3 alchemy masters or Elder Wu, it was the first time that they had seen this kind of method. If this kind of method appeared in a Deshang stage alchemy master, maybe everyone would not feel strange, they would only admire the alchemy master, but it happened to appear in a disciple of the Qi refining stage, and he was not from a professional alchemy sect, but from Chunyang Palace. The alchemy masters of the Yuanying stage were once again looking at Xianxia's performance. They wanted to know more, but they couldn't put down the Yuanying stage ancestors' arrogance. They could only widen their eyes and want to see some clues from it. Unfortunately, no matter how they observed with their naked eyes and explored with their spiritual awareness, they could not understand the key. They were still confused. As soon as the best quality emerald jade Xianxia entered the profound spirit furnace, it began to tremble wildly, but it was blocked by Xianxia's flame restriction, and it could not escape for a while. In a blink of an eye, the bean-sized flame wrapped around the emerald jade Xianxia, rendering the turquoise body into a dark red. This medicinal material was not a trivial matter. With Xianxia's skill, he could only stop the emerald jade Xianxia for a few breaths. However, these few breaths were enough to cover the profound spirit furnace. When Xianxia's flame restriction was shattered by the impact of the emerald jade Xianxia, the 6 earth fiend arrays inside the profound spirit furnace, which had been sacrificially refined by Xianxia's Earth Fiend sacrificial formation secret art, instantly played a role, and the emerald jade Xianxia was firmly controlled in the furnace body, and it was no longer possible to escape. Xianxia only needed to control the profound spirit furnace, provide the spiritual power needed by the formation, speed up the refining, and there would be no danger of the emerald jade Xianxia escaping. The dark red flame swept the entire emerald jade Xianxia and began to burn slowly. Under the effect of the earth flame, the medicinal energy of the jade Xianxia began to slowly emit a trace. For Xianxia, this trace of medicinal qi was enough to make up for his need to control the magic treasure, maintain the array, and control the flame. He didn't even need to use the qi-nourishing pill to restore his spiritual power. Refining the jadeite Xianxia was not as easy as refining the green jade that Wuxia had used for his experiment, which could be completed in an instant. The earth flame was burning fiercely, but the green jade Xianxia seemed to have its own spirit energy protecting itself. No matter how hard Xianxia tried, he couldn't refine the green jade Xianxia in a short time. However, since the emerald jade Ganoderma had been thrown into the profound spirit furnace, there was no chance to come out. Others might not know what was happening inside, but Xianxia knew very well. Everyone knew that this wasn't something that could be done overnight, so they were patient enough to wait for Yang Qin. What Yang Qin had to do now was to calmly and slowly consume the power of the best quality emerald jade Xianxia, slowly wear it down, and then refine the body. This was a job that required a lot of patience and control. If one was not patient enough, they might give up halfway. And if there was a problem with the control of the core fire, they might accidentally destroy this precious heavenly treasure. Fortunately, Yang Qin didn't have to worry about the emerald jade Xianxia being able to escape. He had one less thing to worry about, so he could control the flame wholeheartedly to refine it. Patience was something that Yang Qin had never lacked. Even in his previous life, Yang Qin had the experience of forbearance for thousands of years. After dozens of days, Yang Qin felt that the spirit of the emerald jade Xianxia had been resisting and struggling. Unfortunately, after entering the profound spirit furnace, it couldn't get any nourishment and recovery. The remaining spiritual power was also being consumed little by little, and the power of the struggle was getting smaller and smaller. In Yang Qin's calculation, it would take another 2 months to completely refine the spirit of the emerald jade Xianxia. During the refining process, Yang Qin relied on absorbing a little bit of the medicinal qi that escaped from the edge, and he had always maintained a state of abundant spiritual power. This was not unexpected at all. Everyone knew the preciousness of the best quality emerald jade Xianxia. Everyone looked at Yang Qin and seemed to be envious that he could be nourished by the medicinal qi of the emerald jade Xianxia when he was in the qi refining stage. Everyone knew that the earlier they were influenced by this top-quality treasure, the better it would be for their future development. In a blink of an eye, another 2 months passed. Under the continuous suffering of Yang Qin's earth flame, the best quality emerald jade Xianxia finally stopped struggling and there was no longer a trace of trembling. It lay quietly in the furnace of the profound spirit furnace, motionless. An indescribable huge spiritual power directly rushed through the profound spirit furnace and entered the body of Yang Qin. After being nourished by the life essence of countless immortals, there was a little change at this moment. The flesh and blood turned over, and it seemed that there was a mysterious ability all of a sudden. There was a sense of vitality, as if no matter how heavy the injury was, as long as the body did not die immediately, there was a possibility of recovery. It was purely a feeling, he had not practiced it, but Yang Qin was convinced that he had this vitality. It seemed that he had refined the best quality emerald jade Xianxia and absorbed it into his body. No wonder Helian Yun was not willing to let Yang Qin refine and purify the medicine. It may be that he knew that refining and purifying would have such benefits. Yang Qin did not refine many pills in his previous life. He was not very familiar with the medicinal properties of this best quality emerald jade Xianxia. He thought that it could only get a breakthrough in spiritual power. Now he understood the huge benefits contained in it. The spiritual power that rushed into the body, in addition to bringing this feeling of vitality, began to frantically improve Yang Qin's spiritual power. It has been refined by the profound spirit furnace for a few months. There were almost no impurities in the spiritual power. It directly drove the yin and yang 5 elements spirit power in Yang Qin's body to circulate wildly. Even if Yang Qin used the yin and yang 5 elements to refine this spiritual power again, there was still a steady stream of spiritual power that began to rush into Yang Qin's body. The spiritual power contained in the emerald jade Xianxia began to be released little by little. Just the beginning of refining the spirit was enough for Yang Qin to benefit for a lifetime. Yang Qin has been recuperating his body and preparing for the impact of the foundation stage. Now it was finally the time for the sprint. With this huge medicinal power, the spiritual power in Yang Qin's body began to rise wildly, and at the same time, it began to slowly overflow, vaguely beginning to communicate with the spiritual power of the outside world. The thick spiritual power in the manor and the spiritual power in Yang Qin's body began to merge, and gradually there was a posture of blending into one. In front of the 4 Yuanying stage masters and a Deshang stage master, Yang Qin's body emitted a white light, and the spiritual power in the manor began to gather crazily towards this side. Chapter 154. Communicate with Heaven and Earth? Wu Xiong was stunned, And then he frowned. At this time, Yang Chen's foundation stage was a good thing, and Wu Xiong was happy to see it. However, Wu Xiong was afraid that Yang Chen would lose his focus because of the sudden communication with heaven and earth. If he was not careful in refining and purifying the emerald jade Xianxia, he would fail. Other medicinal materials could be prepared for a few, but there was only one of the best emerald jade Xianxia. At this time, Wu Xiong regretted that he didn't raise Yang Chen's cultivation to the foundation stage in the beginning. He didn't expect that this kind of thing would happen when Yang Chen was refining the emerald jade Xianxia. However, he didn't know that those alchemists should be clear. How could they not remind him? Thinking of this, Wu Xiong looked at Xu Peng, Deng Ya, and Helian Yun with some dissatisfaction. If this refining failed, it must be related to these three people. In fact, Xu Peng, Helian Yun, and Helian Yun were also surprised. Although they knew that refining the emerald jade Xianxia had great benefits, they did not expect that Yang Chen would start to build his foundation during the refining process. When they realized this, everything was too late. For a while, they didn't know what to do. They could only keep a close eye on Yang Chen with their spiritual awareness, for fear that he would have an accident. The spirit between heaven and earth rushed to Yang Chen. Yang Chen had already expected this. He opened his mind and let the spirit of heaven and earth enter his body, but his hands did not relax at all. The flame that controlled the profound spirit furnace did not change at all. It burned the emerald jade Xianxia steadily and effectively, without any fluctuations. Such a performance made the few people around him feel a little relieved. Although their spiritual awareness could not detect what had happened inside the profound spirit furnace, the spiritual power controlled by Yang Chen's two hands had not changed at all, which had explained a lot of problems. Wu Xiong was particularly happy. At this time, Yang Chen could still ignore the surprise of his own sudden foundation stage, and was still trying his best to maintain the process of refining the emerald jade Xianxia, which really made him surprised and happy. If such a change suddenly occurred in the body of an ordinary person, there would be a trace of spiritual power fluctuations, but Yang Chen's control of the profound spirit furnace did not change at all. Even if it was Wu Xiong himself, he wouldn't have been able to do what Yang Chen did back then. The supreme-grade jadeite Xianxia and the rich spiritual energy in the manor allowed Yang Chen to enter the foundation establishment stage without any hindrance. During this process, his divine sense and spiritual power both increased crazily. The quantitative change that had been accumulated for a long time finally caused a thorough qualitative change. A huge amount of spiritual power began to overflow from his meridians and enter his body, beginning to nourish his internal organs. The medicinal power and spiritual power scoured Yang Chen's body over and over again. His body, which had been transformed by the life essence of tens of thousands of immortals, began to slowly expel some grayish-black impurities. Soon, it gave off an unpleasant smell. This was some of the changes that would inevitably occur during the foundation stage. The impurities of the body were expelled, and the body would be more clean. However, at this moment, no one could help Yang Chen clean the impurities on his body, for fear of disturbing him and making the refining and purification of the emerald jade Xianxia fail. Everyone could only bear this unbearable smell, and did not dare to relax for a moment to stare at Yang Chen, for fear that he would be out of control by these images. At the moment when everyone was nervous, Yang Chen suddenly made a move that made all the people present lose their souls. He actually stretched out a hand from the top of the profound spirit furnace, and a water attribute spiritual power turned into a clear stream. It brushed the surface of Yang Chen's body like a snake. In a moment, the impurities that were discharged around his body were washed away. Then these cleaned impurities were taken out of a jade bottle by Yang Chen, and all of them were collected, which made people very confused. However, what surprised everyone was that even if Yang Chen made so many movements, the other hand holding the profound spirit furnace was always firm, without the slightest wavering, and the output of spiritual power was very stable. It was as if at this moment, Yang Chen suddenly became two people. Others didn't know, but Yang Chen was clear about his physical condition. The huge improvement of the foundation stage brought about by the spiritual awareness allowed Yang Chen's spiritual awareness to directly rush to the realm of the peak Jiedan stage. The benefits of cultivating the three purities secret art were reflected at this moment. Although Yang Chen has not yet reached the point of cultivating the second primordial spirit, there is no problem with multitasking. While controlling the profound spirit furnace to refine the emerald jade, he controlled the spiritual power to wash his body, as if it was natural. The people who were almost scared into a cold sweat were once again impressed by Yang Chen, but everyone didn't understand why Yang Chen would collect the impurities discharged from his own body and put them in the jade bottle, which made everyone puzzled. However, this was obviously not the time to ask clearly. They could only watch Yang Chen finish everything, and then enjoy the spiritual power in the body, while controlling the profound spirit furnace to continue refining. Even if the spirit of the emerald jade has disappeared, it still takes time to refine it. Fortunately, when he entered the foundation stage from the qi refining stage, his spiritual power and spiritual awareness had greatly increased, plus the medicinal power that escaped from the emerald jade Xianxia. He could still maintain sufficient spiritual power and calmly refine the emerald jade Xianxia. The fire attribute spiritual power finally broke through the bottleneck of the qi refining stage and entered the foundation stage. The other spiritual powers of several other attributes were also nourished by the emerald jade, and the overall level was improved, from the qi refining stage to the qi refining stage. Taking advantage of the opportunity of the foundation stage, the spiritual power of the outside world also began to go crazy at this moment, providing an opportunity for Yang Chen to consolidate the realm. This process continued for Yang Chen for almost 10 days, and the emerald jade slowly changed. First, the emerald jade that became dark red began to soften slowly, and finally gradually became a liquid. The impurities in the medicinal liquid were released to the edge of the profound spirit furnace by Yang Chen's precise control of the flame, leaving only the most essence of the profound spirit furnace's medicinal liquid in the center. After the medicinal liquid was completely melted, Yang Chen controlled the flame to burn the whole medicinal liquid for a while, cleaning up the impurities contained in it. After the medicinal effect treatment reached the limit of Yang Chen opened his mouth and said, "The emerald jade has been refined, hurry up and prepare the pill furnace." Once the emerald jade was refined, it would be used immediately. Everyone had already been ready. After hearing Yang Chen's words, Deng Ya directly placed her pill furnace in front of Yang Chen. Compared with Yang Chen's profound spirit furnace, this one was much more advanced. The magic pill furnace exuded a purple light, just like a king standing in front of the civilians. Yang Chen fully controlled the medicinal liquid of the emerald jade. At the moment when the profound spirit furnace was opened, he instantly moved it into Deng Ya's pill furnace. Deng Ya was already prepared. As soon as the medicinal liquid entered the pill furnace, she immediately began to take over the control, and a basic medicinal pill was thrown in instantly. Seeing that all this was completed, Yang Chen took a long breath, stood up, and said to Wu Xiong, "Elder Wu, fortunately I did not fail." Chapter 155. While Yang Chen breathed a sigh of relief, Wu Xiong also breathed a sigh of relief. With the success of refining the best quality green jade Xianxia, the success rate of the subsequent refining process had increased a bit. In the process of Yang Chen refining and purifying the emerald jade Xianxia, several other people were not idle. They had already discussed the original fusion plan several times, and finally determined one. Among them, they even referred to Yang Chen's previous water and fire fusion method. Although they couldn't know the core method of Yang Chen, it provided them with an idea to solve the problem. Deng Ya was the one with the highest cultivation among the three alchemists, so she naturally became the main alchemist and began to carry out the next plan. The next refining process would last at least a year. Just the fusion of dozens of high-level medicinal pills required a long process. To be able to complete it within a year was already a great achievement. Zhu Peng and Helian Yun were not idle. In addition to providing support to Deng Ya at any time, the remaining major task was to deal with the monster beast's original spirit. The monster beast that Wu Xiong captured was a flood dragon that was almost fully formed. Its original body was a huge poisonous python. It had cultivated for nearly thousands of years, and its body was extremely close to that of a flood dragon. There were even 2 horns protruding from its head. It was only 1 step away from ascending. Even with Wu Xiong's ability, with the cooperation of Fan Shan, it took a lot of effort to capture it. He even had to recuperate for a long time. In addition to the best quality green jade Xianxia, the most important part of the heaven-seizing pill was the monster beast's original spirit. This was the powerful original spirit that acted as the heaven-seizing pill's original spirit. Even the best quality green jade Xianxia's original spirit was not qualified. Now, dealing with this poisonous flood dragon required Wu Xiong to cooperate with Zhu Peng and Helian Yun. Of course, Fan Shan was an indispensable person. He was the key to controlling this poisonous flood dragon. Consume this poisonous flood dragon's spiritual power, and then extract its original spirit? Yang Chen was already a bystander at this time. What happened later had nothing to do with him, but after hearing this method, he still couldn't help but question. Isn't this method making the poisonous flood dragon's original spirit weak? Ignorant junior, boasting shamelessly and making irresponsible remarks. However, He Lianyun was not polite to Yang Chen at all and directly ridiculed Yang Chen's doubts. Do you really think that you can refine the heaven-seizing pill with a little fire control method? Or are you saying that us 3 nascent soul alchemists are not as good as you, a junior who has just entered the foundation establishment stage? The method to deal with the poison flood dragon's true spirit was also decided upon by the 3 alchemists after much discussion. After all, the venomous flood dragon was a super demonic beast that was close to ascending to immortality. Its origin spirit was so strong that it was not something that a few nascent soul stage alchemists could control. The original spirit of such a powerful demonic beast was different from the original spirit of a heavenly treasure like the green jade Xianxia. It didn't have the ability to attack. As long as he put in some effort, Yang Chen, a junior in the Qi refinement stage, could also deal with it. The venomous flood dragon's origin spirit was a great realm higher than Deng Ya's. Once it was not controlled well, not only would the heaven-seizing pill's refining fail, but the alchemist would also suffer the backlash of the demonic beast's origin spirit. If it was light, it would be seriously injured, and if it was heavy, it would be fatal. It was really very dangerous. To complete the refining of the heaven-seizing pill, the venomous flood dragon's origin spirit could not have any problems. The venomous flood dragon's spiritual power would be consumed until it was weak. This state of the venomous flood dragon's origin spirit was the easiest to control. Moreover, the degree of weakness must be grasped. It could not be stronger than Deng Ya's. At the same time, it could not be too weak, leading to a lack of ferocity. Since it is called the heaven-seizing pill, the 2 words heaven-seizing pill must not be something that a weak origin spirit can achieve, right? Yang Chen ignored He Lianyun's sarcasm, frowned and said his own reason. Although this junior does not know how to refine the heaven-seizing pill, I can also imagine. If I am not strong enough, how can I shoulder the responsibility of seizing the heaven? Although Yang Chen's words were somewhat subjective, they were very reasonable, at least in the previous discussion. Wu Xiong had also raised this concern. However, considering the cultivation of the alchemist, the possibility of refining, and the fierce venomous flood dragon, wanting to obtain the complete origin spirit without the slightest injury, this was almost impossible. After the 3 alchemists discussed with Fan Shan and Wu Xiong, they unanimously came to this conclusion: this was the easiest to control and also the best refining method. In his previous life, Yang Chen had only heard of the fierceness of the heaven-seizing pill, but had never personally refined it. In addition, Yang Chen's current cultivation could be considered the most insignificant among the group, so his words did not have much persuasive power. He had refined and purified the best quality jadeite jade Xianxia, which was equivalent to having completed all the work. Whether the heaven-seizing pill was successful or not, it could be said that it had nothing to do with Yang Chen. The reason why they could still keep Yang Chen, in addition to letting him experience it, was because of the sun's true fire bet. At this moment, it was almost impossible for Yang Chen to convince the people who had already made a plan. However, this kind of refining, Yang Chen subconsciously felt that it was not appropriate. If a weak monster beast origin spirit could successfully refine the heaven-seizing pill, it was simply a joke. Although the success or failure of the refining had nothing to do with Yang Chen at this moment, Yang Chen did not want to watch this opportunity slip away from his hands. If he refined the heaven-seizing pill, he could gain unprecedented fame and get the invisible protection of countless masters. If he missed it, the gains would not make up for the losses. Since there was no way to make everyone change their approach, Yang Chen was smart not to say more about this. His silence, in Helian Yun's eyes, had become a retreat after failing to please the crowd with claptrap. Immediately, strange words were spat out of his mouth. Showing your slight skill in front of an expert, disgraceful. Helian Yun immediately threw out a barrage of sarcastic words. He scolded without any trace of politeness, "Ignorant junior, get lost. Take good care of my son's true fire, don't let it be damaged." Yang Chen was not annoyed, and replied with a smile, immediately making Helian Yun's face pale, and his whole body trembled, unable to speak. Helian Yun wanted to find a chance to talk to Yang Chen about this a few times, to see if he could use other things to replace the sun's true fire as a bet, but he always could not put down his face. When the words just came out, it was in vain to show off his eloquence, but it did not benefit him at all. Yang Chen's counterattack immediately hit Helian Yun, and he could not even do it in his heart. Yang Chen no longer paid attention to this guy, and he began to ponder in his heart how to minimize the impact of that approach and increase the success rate of the heaven-seizing pill. After thinking about it, it seemed that there was only one way to remedy it. However, that way, a lot of medicinal materials would be needed, and he would have to refine it again. Chapter 156. He didn't know how Elder Wuxiong found and captured this poisonous flood dragon. Yang Chen didn't care, and he wouldn't take the initiative to ask. However, there was one thing he was very concerned about. How poisonous was this poisonous flood dragon, and how powerful was its original spirit? This matter was related to the degree of his remedy, so he couldn't be careless. Speaking of which, it was a bit troublesome. This was a poisonous flood dragon. When refining, although it was its primordial spirit, the nature of the primordial spirit would have a kind of instinct to use poison. If this was a successful refining of the heaven-seizing pill, after taking it, there might be a subconscious feeling of being poisoned, which would consume cultivation to resist. In response to this, Yang Chen needed to add a little detoxification function in the final process. Of course, it was not to use detoxification drugs, but to let the poisonous flood dragon's original spirit have a feeling of being restrained, which would then restrain the consumption of cultivation after taking the heaven-seizing pill. Another point was that when the poisonous flood dragon's original spirit was taken out, it was extremely weak. In this case, even if it successfully integrated into the pill and became a pill spirit, it would instinctively feel weak. At this time, the weakness of the pill spirit would lead to a great reduction in the efficacy of the pill. Seizing the heaven was not something a weak and dying pill spirit could do. Elder Wu, I don't have anything to do for the time being. I want to refine some pills myself to try, can you allow it? Yang Chen directly found Wuxiong and put forward his own request. Wuxiong was worried that Yang Chen would cause trouble for Helian Yun if he had nothing to do. When he heard Yang Chen's active request, he naturally hurriedly agreed, "No problem, are you going to refine here or somewhere else? If you need any medicinal materials, you can ask the servants outside, they will prepare them for you." Wu Xiong agreed very generously, but at the same time, he also revealed a hidden meaning. If Yang Chen wanted to refine his own pills, it was best to go somewhere else and not interfere with the refining here. As for what kind of medicinal pill Yang Chen wanted to refine, Wu Xiong did not care. He was also happy that Yang Chen was no longer here to provoke Helian Yun and affect the refining process. As for the medicinal ingredients that Yang Chen needed, what kind of high-level medicinal pill could Yang Chen, who had just reached the foundation establishment stage, refine? Of course, Yang Chen knew what to do. He immediately smiled and said, "I'll go outside to refine it. However, I want to ask Elder Wu for a dose of medicinal herbs." Yang Chen was more than willing to refine outside. Of course, the things he refined could not be seen by the people inside, especially Helian Yun. What kind of medicinal herbs? Wu Xiong asked curiously. If he could ask for it, it would naturally be a very high-grade medicinal herb. This is a cluster of powder scraped from the venomous flood dragon's demonic core. Yang Chen pointed at the spirit beast pouch on Fan Shan's waist and smiled. The venomous flood dragon had been kept in the spirit beast bag. Ever since it had been captured, it had never seen the light of day and would soon face its final fate. Yang Chen was not greedy. He only wanted a cluster of powder scraped from the demonic core. For Wu Xiong, this kind of request was as easy as lifting a finger. He was just curious as to why Yang Chen would want this thing. Based on Yang Chen's previous performance, even if he wanted this demonic core, Wu Xiong might not refuse. However, at this time, it was not yet the time to reward him based on merit. Yang Chen's actions were not excessive and would not cause dissatisfaction from others. As expected, He Lianyun looked at Yang Chen as if he was watching a joke. It was as if he found it funny that Yang Chen overestimated himself and wanted to use the powder of the demonic core to refine a medicinal pill. A little foundation establishment disciple dared to use a demonic core to refine a medicinal pill. Did he not see if he had the ability or not? Although He Lianyun was sneering, He Lianyun did not stop him at all. It was as if he was waiting to see Yang Chen make a fool of himself. Seeing this, Wu Xiong nodded his head and did not say anything. The venomous flood dragon had been captured for a long time and had already used all kinds of methods to survive. However, under the joint suppression of Fan Shan and Wu Xiong, it was simply unable to resist. Just as it was released from Wu Xiong's restriction array, it immediately controlled the demonic core to attack the enemy that had captured it. Wu Xiong calmly controlled the flying sword and quickly welcomed the huge green demonic core. After the sword flashed a few times, Fan Shan controlled the spirit beast bag and put the venomous flood dragon back. Wu Xiong held the flying sword in his hand and arrived in front of Yang Chen. Is this enough? The flying sword was flashing with a green light. This was the powder that the flying sword scraped off from the venomous flood dragon's demonic core. It was very fresh. Yang Chen carefully used a jade bottle to collect the powder. He nodded and said, "It's enough." Wu Xiong put away the flying sword and no longer said anything. However, there was a gratified look in his eyes. Although Yang Chen had the upper hand since the beginning, he did not make things difficult for Wu Xiong. Moreover, he did his job very well, which made Wu Xiong very satisfied. Knowing when to advance and when to retreat, this was Wu Xiong's evaluation of Yang Chen's performance. In a manner not far from where the heaven-seizing pill was being refined, Yang Chen found a quiet room and used it as his alchemy room. He found a servant and gave him some instructions. Then he brought out the medicinal ingredients that he needed and asked for them to be prepared. Of course, there were some medicinal ingredients that he did not need mixed in. He did not want others to know what he was refining and how he was refining it. Wu Xiong had already instructed the servants to absolutely satisfy Yang Chen's requests. What Yang Chen wanted was not too advanced medicinal ingredients, and in order to refine the heaven-seizing pill, Wu Xiong almost collected all the spirit medicines in the world. These medicinal ingredients that were not so advanced appeared in Yang Chen's alchemy room in less than a day. The spirit power of the venomous flood dragon had already begun to be consumed. In the spirit beast bag, there was no spirit power to replenish the venomous flood dragon. Yang Chen looked at the sight over there and listened to the cries of the venomous flood dragon from time to time. He couldn't help but shake his head and sigh. Then he began to sort the medicinal ingredients. Although he had already built the foundation stage in this place, Yang Chen did not want to expose more of his own cultivation methods. So although he could sacrificially refine the magic weapon again, he had been holding back. He just used the profound spirit furnace to start refining the large and small medicinal ingredients to prepare for his own refining. In a blink of an eye, a few months had passed. The medicinal liquid of the emerald jade Ganoderma had integrated no less than 40 basic medicinal pills, but there were still almost 20 medicinal pills that had not been integrated. The difficulty of the concoction also became higher and higher. Deng Ya was already unable to persevere alone. Zhu Peng and Helian Yun also took turns to control the medicinal liquid in the alchemy furnace and slowly concoct. Every time they took turns, they all looked exhausted. After they stopped, they immediately used medicinal pills to recover their spiritual power. They did not dare to delay at all. On Yang Chen's side, everything was ready. It was impossible for Helian Yun to have time to pay attention to him. After simply arranging a warning array, Yang Chen carefully put the powder of the venomous dragon bile into the profound spirit furnace. Chapter 157. The Niden of the poisonous flood dragon, although only a little powder, was also a very high-grade material. It would take a period of time to refine it. Fortunately, there was no primordial spirit, so it was much easier. However, before the official refining, it was also necessary to consider the toxicity of the poisonous flood dragon Niden, which also took time. After refining the best emerald jade Ganoderma, the profound spirit furnace was directly upgraded by a grade under the influence of the huge spiritual power and medicinal power. It still emitted a burst of treasure light, but it was already mixed with a little spiritual energy. The entire profound spirit furnace was in the process of impact from a low-level magic weapon to an intermediate magic weapon. It was believed that after a few layers of refining, it would become an intermediate magic weapon with a convergence of treasure light. After the success of the foundation stage, compared with the Qi refining period, the spiritual power and spiritual awareness had a direct qualitative change. Not to mention anything else, just being able to communicate with the spiritual energy between heaven and earth at any time could make Yang Chen maintain a stronger power whether it was cultivation or fighting. Alchemy was no exception. The medicinal pills that could not be operated before, now there was a possibility of success in refining. The poisonous flood dragon's primordial spirit may be weak and unable to support the heavy responsibility of seizing the heavens. Yang Chen needed to make the pill spirit stronger. And in the refining process, dozens of basic medicinal pills with various attributes must be integrated. In order to consider the possibility of refining failure, Yang Chen also needed to refine some things that harmonized yin and yang and the 5 elements. In short, it was better to be prepared. Both sides were working hard to refine. Relatively speaking, Yang Chen's was relatively simple and completed this step faster. With these things, Yang Chen still had a little more confidence in refining the heaven-seizing pill in the final stage. After all, compared with other people, Yang Chen still knew the most about the heaven-seizing pill. He had not eaten pork and he had seen pigs run. Even Elder Wu Xiong, who had the highest cultivation base, did not necessarily have his knowledge. For Yang Chen, although he did not know the final refining method of the heaven-seizing pill, if he had the cultivation base of Wu Xiong, he could also forcibly refine it without any problems. Now the only weakness was that Yang Chen's cultivation base was too low. He could only let others work hard first, and then he would find a way to remedy it. The heaven-seizing pill had already entered the final refining stage. All the basic pills had already been thrown into the jadeite zoysia's medicinal liquid. The jadeite Ganoderma itself was a medicinal herb that contained all 5 elements. As long as the method was correct, it would not be a problem to fuse with all the basic pills. Now, it seemed that Deng Ya, Zhu Peng, and Helian Yun still had some real skills. At least so far, everything was going smoothly. The 3 alchemists no longer took turns to control the alchemy furnace. Instead, the 3 of them stood around the alchemy furnace at the same time. Deng Ya took the lead and the other 2 assisted her, controlling the alchemy furnace at the same time. The fusion of the medicinal liquid would take a few days to be fully completed. At that time, it would be time to add the pill spirit. That was also the most critical moment. The success or failure of the fusion of the pill spirit would directly determine the success or failure of the pill refinement. The poisonous flood dragon's origin spirit was completely prepared. The poisonous flood dragon, which had been tossed around by Wu Xiong and Fan Shan, was staying in Fan Shan's spirit beast bag to maintain its life. It was only waiting for the monster beast's origin spirit to be taken out alive. At this time, Yang Chen also came to the refining site. He stared at the refining of the 3 alchemists, as if he wanted to learn something from the refining methods of the 3 alchemists. At this time, even Helian Yun, who had the most opinions about Yang Chen, did not have the extra energy to pay attention to Yang Chen. The 3 high-level alchemists focused on controlling the alchemy furnace and did not dare to be distracted for a moment. The purple alchemy furnace had now become a behemoth that occupied an area of 10 feet. The alchemy furnace, which had been sacrificially refined by an expert, was now exuding bursts of violent heat. People with lower cultivation bases could not even approach it. Fortunately, Xianxia himself was a fire cultivator, and he also had the earth core fire. This did not cause any trouble for him. The three alchemists sat on 3 different sides of the alchemy furnace, each controlling their own unique flames as they continuously refined the medicinal liquid inside the alchemy furnace. Currently, the alchemy furnace was still covered, so Xianxia had no way of knowing what was happening inside. He could only carefully observe the actions of the 3 alchemists, carefully probing them with his divine sense as he waited for the final moment to arrive. Under the control of the 3 alchemists, the alchemy furnace was very stable, but it was becoming hotter and hotter. Adding up to a total of tens of thousands of kilograms of medicinal ingredients, refining them into a small pill inside the alchemy furnace really required a lot of effort. Although Wuxia and Fanshan did not participate in the refining process for the time being, they were still meditating only 5 steps away from the alchemy furnace, waiting to force out the poisonous flood dragon's origin spirit at any time. After several days of accumulating power, the alchemy furnace reached its peak. The purple alchemy furnace had even turned white. Deng Ya, Zhu Peng, and Helian Yun's foreheads were all covered in sparkling and translucent beads of sweat. At this moment, they did not even bother to wipe it off. Instead, they placed their hands on the alchemy furnace and frantically urged the fire to burn. Origin spirit. Suddenly, Deng Ya opened her mouth and shouted. Immediately after, the alchemy furnace's lid shot up high, revealing the situation inside the alchemy furnace. Surrounded by the 3 flames, a medicinal liquid the size of a person's head spun back and forth between the flames, emitting a fragrant scent. Just by smelling this scent, one's entire body felt as if they were floating in the air, as if they were ascending to the heavens and their spiritual power surged. The heaven-seizing pill truly lived up to its reputation when it had such an effect even before it was formed. Wuxia and Fanshan did not dare to be negligent. Their figures flashed like lightning and instantly appeared next to the alchemy furnace. Fanshan's spirit beast pouch was opened, and a flood dragon that was about 100 feet long and 10 feet thick appeared on the ground. Its enormous body nearly filled the entire area of the alchemy furnace. The poisonous flood dragon was already on the verge of death. After it came out, it was motionless. Only a trace of signs of life could be seen in its eyes. Wuxia pressed the huge flood dragon's head with one hand and slammed the top of the flood dragon's head with the other. Boom! The huge flood dragon's head split open on the spot. A faint ball of light flew out from the top of the head. Wuxia quickly caught it and threw it directly into the alchemy furnace. The huge flood dragon's corpse was immediately put away by Fanshan. Everyone stared at the alchemy furnace with bright eyes. The white light directly integrated into the head-sized medicinal liquid, and then the alchemy furnace's lid quickly closed. Deng Ya, Zhu Peng, and Helian Yun once again began to frantically refine. This was the last step and also the most crucial step. As long as this step was completed, the heaven-seizing pill would be successfully refined. If this step was wrong, then all previous efforts would be wasted. The 3 alchemists had already mustered up all their strength at this moment, only waiting for the final fight. Wuxia, Fanshan, and Xianxia could not be considered to have any strength for the time being. They just carefully waited on the side, waiting for the furnace to be opened. But at that moment... Chapter 158. This kind of fusion lasted for a few days and nights. During this time, even the weakened venomous flood dragon's origin spirit had suddenly switched bodies and was still being refined. A large mass of medicinal liquid was constantly struggling, and even the giant alchemy furnace was being struck by the medicinal liquid. Beads of sweat continuously dripped from the faces of Deng Ya and the other 2. Every few hours, Wuxia would feed the 3 of them a pill to recover their spiritual power. However, the vibration of the medicinal liquid never stopped, and the sound of it hitting the pill furnace continued. The faces of everyone present were the same, anxious and worried. The alchemists were like this, and the people watching next to them were the same. The most worried was Wu Xiong. In order to refine the heaven-seizing pill, from looking for the pill recipe to searching for various materials, it took hundreds of years to prepare. Seeing that it was the final critical moment, the success or failure would soon be clear. Even Wu Xiong lost the calmness of a master of the Dashang stage. Finally, the sound of the medicinal liquid vibration became smaller and the interval between the sounds was getting bigger and bigger. It seemed that the struggle of the poisonous flood dragon's original spirit was getting weaker and weaker, and finally stopped completely. The faces of the three alchemists showed a hint of relief, and Wu Xiong and Fan Shan, who were watching by the side, also slowly put down their hearts. Wu Xiong's face even showed a hint of joy. It seems that it is about to be done. Not necessarily. The voice of Yang Qin came from the side. His words made everyone frown. The 4 Yuanying stage masters and a master of the Dashang stage did not say anything, but a little guy who had just reached the foundation stage said such discouraging words. It was really a bit of a killjoy. If such a gentle pill can be called stealing the heavens, then this stealing the heavens is a bit too simple. Under the dissatisfied gaze of many masters, Yang Chen had no fear. He just frowned and said, maybe the medicinal pill will have a counterattack. This was not Yang Chen's deliberate strong performance. It was really that the heaven-seizing pill that he had heard of was really not such an easy thing. If they relaxed at this time, not only would they fall short of success, there might not even be a way to remedy it. Although the words were not pleasant to hear, everyone present understood the good and bad, and everyone was more alert and did not dare to relax. The opportunity to go down in history was right in front of them, and no one wanted to give it up at the last moment. Pung! A loud sound came from within the alchemy cauldron, and the huge alchemy cauldron was even directly moved several feet horizontally. The ferocious impact almost threw the 3 alchemists around the alchemy cauldron to the ground. Fortunately, Yang Chen's warning was timely, and everyone was prepared. Although the force of the collision was huge, it did not affect the refinement of the 3 people in the slightest. The 6 hands were still firmly pressed against the alchemy furnace, and they continued to increase the intensity of the fire. Wu Xiong looked at Yang Chen gratefully, nodded at Yang Chen, and turned to the alchemy furnace. It seemed that this collision had consumed all of the pill spirit's power. After that, there was no more movement. After quietly refining for a day and a night, Deng Ya felt that the temperature in the furnace was sufficient. She opened her mouth and shouted, "Be careful, I want to condense the pill and collect the pill." With one hand against the alchemy furnace to control the temperature, Deng Ya's other hand made a few complicated gestures in the air, driving the medicinal liquid in the alchemy furnace to start condensing the pill. This was the final step. As long as the pill condensed and collected successfully, all the work would be completed. Wu Xiong's face was already full of anticipation. There were so many procedures before, and there were no accidents. Only this last step was left, and he could immediately get the heaven-seizing pill. His excitement was overflowing. Not only Wu Xiong but Deng Ya, Zhu Peng, He Lianyun, and Fan Shan next to him all had the same expectant expression. The joy on everyone's face had not even completely overflowed when they saw Deng Ya's face change first, followed by Zhu Peng and He Lianyun's faces. The 3 alchemists were the ones who knew what was happening in the alchemy furnace the best. The change in their faces directly made Wu Xiong and Fan Shan's hearts go cold. Did the refinement fail? But the 3 alchemists did not say anything, and no one knew what happened. The only one who did not change was probably Yang Qin. This pill was so tepid, how could it still be called heaven-seizing? Even if the refinement was successful, it would at most be stealing from the heavens. It had nothing to do with the word seize at all. It would be strange if it could succeed. Deng Ya had already tried several techniques, and the expression on her face became more and more anxious. Zhu Peng and He Lianyun, who were helping, frowned and did not say a word. After Deng Ya tried the last technique, she stopped and said to Zhu Peng and He Lianyun, "I can't condense the pill, you guys try." Wu Xiong's heart finally sank after hearing the current situation within the pill cauldron. However, there was still some anticipation in his eyes as he looked at Zhu Peng and He Lianyun on the other side. At this moment, there was no need to be polite. Zhu Peng stretched out his hand and began to perform the method of condensing the pill outside the alchemy furnace. In a short moment he tried more than a dozen techniques, but in the end he stopped and did not say a word. The result must be the same as Deng Ya, unable to condense the pill. The last one left, He Lianyun, did not seem to believe it. His spirit was lifted, and he displayed everything he had learned in his life at this moment. In Yang Chen's view, his current method of condensing the pill was estimated to be at least 2 points stronger than usual. Deng Ya and Zhu Peng were unable to condense the pill. As long as He Lianyun seized this opportunity to amaze the world, then Wu Xiong would definitely be grateful to protect him, and he might not have to pay for the bet he lost. And not only that, the great reputation of successfully refining the heaven-seizing pill could directly make He Lianyun superior to all the alchemists in the mortal world, becoming the #1 alchemist in the world. At that time, he would definitely gain both fame and fortune. At the thought of the glory after success, He Lianyun was even a little absent-minded at this moment. Wu Xiong's eyes were almost staring at He Lianyun, and the expectation on his face, as He Lianyun's gestures became slower and slower, also turned into despair. I failed. As a master of the Deshang stage, he was also 3 points more generous than others, and it was not to the point where he couldn't afford to lose. Seeing this situation, looking at the 3 alchemists who were still working hard, he sighed and admitted the failure of this refining. After all, the pill recipe is incomplete. I don't blame you, stop. Wu Xiong's words also announced the failure of everyone's efforts. The 3 alchemists all let go of the alchemy furnace in a somewhat dejected manner, and the lid of the furnace opened automatically, revealing the situation inside. A mass of black things. It was impossible to see what it was. Although it still exuded a powerful spiritual power, everyone understood that this was already a failed dregs, not the heaven-seizing pill they wanted. Seeing this black mass, Yang Chen's eyes lit up. Welcome to Legends of Cultivation, audiobooks, where we bring ancient fantasy to life through storytelling. Follow the rise of heroes who defy fate, unlock mystical powers, and battle across celestial realms. Our audiobooks are crafted for fans of Chinese cultivation novels, filled with battles, breakthroughs, and legendary artifacts. Subscribe and be part of an unforgettable journey into the realm of immortality.